Absolute Superman issue 1, Jason Aaron writing with RAFA Sandoval on the art. This is the third of our Absolute line coming out. We had Batman first, we got Wonder Woman second, and now we've had Superman.
Yep.
And this was the first one announced. I mean, unless they announced multiples at the same time, but I feel like this is the first one we knew about.
Oh no, I feel like it was Batman. They led with Snyder coming back.
Maybe you're right.
I think. And then we heard about this one, and then Wonder Woman.
Yeah, you may be right, but for whatever reason, I felt like this was the one that was sticking in my brain. Is like,
I feel like Superman and Wonder Woman got announced at around the same time, and we were, both excited for their creative teams. So
yeah, yeah. I mean, this book's interesting, as all the Absolute books have been, and how it reshapes the origin. It's kind of like half the book takes place on Krypton before its destruction. And it's not just the opening, because obviously there's an extended opening on Krypton, but it even goes back to it by the end, and it seems like that, at least through the first arc, I suspect that we're going to keep getting more of the story of what happened in those last days of Krypton.
Which I do like, because I feel like we get the, single shot from All-Star Superman, right? The dying planet, the rocket ship, and that. And then we just jump to Superman. So it seems like Aaron is wanting to show the destruction of Krypton from the political and people standpoint, not just the destruction of the planet. Because it does not seem like this. Like, yes, it looks technologically advanced and beautiful, but it is rotting from within in more ways than one.
Yeah, but I think more to the point though is that how different it is to normal. Like not drastically so, but it feels like everything's turned up to 11. So if we normally think of Krypton died because they were too arrogant about what they were doing to their planet, this is taking that and running with it, where we've got almost like a Gattaca style class system on Krypton, where not that it's about genetics necessarily, but the idea that the Sun people are the ones that are running the League, which is controlling the planet. They're all scientists. It's all about progress. And then anyone who's been deemed unsuitable for that, and we find out how both Lara and Jor-El, both as children at various stages, basically got themselves disqualified from the good life and now have to work in servitude for the rest of their lives. They are the lower class. They are not allowed to have the same privileges. And we also find out, at least in this Absolute universe, that the House of El symbol seems to be something that all the lower class wear. It's not a family symbol. It's
it's like the service class, right?
Yeah.
And so Lara works as a mechanic, and we get this very bleak kind of dystopia where you have to pay for the rain. So you have these farmers out in the outskirts of the mega cities of Krypton that if they don't pay their rain bill, they just don't get to grow crops, And so she's helping, build this tractor for this guy, and he mentions that she's like the best mechanic he's ever met. And then you find out that Jor-El was, he wanted to be part of that big science class, right? But he questioned too many things. And he ended up being an engineer. So he's very gifted at what he does, but he's still on the working end of things. He's not in that leadership science council that we come to expect with him.
It's something you lost over there that's probably worth mentioning, is that they literally create the rain. Like, they control clouds with technology, which is why they're charging for it. It's not just that there's a random bill whenever the clouds decide to have a bit of rain. Like, they're literally
make it happen.
They've taken control of the ecosystem. They've taken control of everything. They're mining aggressively. Like, there's giant skyscraper-sized superconductors in the cities that are just for producing energy. Like, they've turned the entire planet into this big battery for the technology they use, and they also have a tight control over how their technology is used, what they're doing. You mentioned Jor-El. It was his graduation speech in high school, if they even called it that, but the equivalent, where he basically criticized how some of the technology has been used, and what they're doing to the planet, and that got him blacklisted from ever joining the League. Lara, on the other hand, was blacklisted at age 9 because she wrote an essay. Even though she was a gifted child, she had a bright future ahead of her, but because she criticized the rules against intergalactic travel, or whatever the rules are for intergalactic travel, because they don't really get too specific with it here, that blacklisted her. So yeah, it's this idea that like she is very talented and potentially would have been like a NASA engineer if she'd kept
Yeah.
going in the path she wanted to be on, and Jor-El would be like leading the world of science in other ways, but instead he's like checking mines for safety issues and things like that, and she's fixing tractors.
Yeah, they call him an engineer, and you know he's kind of like the work site foreman, where he's responsible for all the workers, but he's kind of still middle management. And you know, the scene that we see that in.
No, he's not. Because they literally give you a class here that's called middle management that has a different symbol in the chest. So
that's true.
He is not. He's actually stepping out of line by making decisions, which then middle management challenge him on and say, get back to work. There's no evidence that this mine's unsafe. And Jor-El says, no, it's unsafe. Like, I'm fighting you on it. So it definitely shows us a Jor-El who's willing to stand up for what he thinks is right.
Yes.
And notably in the art, Jor-El in this book looks a lot more like Superman than Superman does, at least for now. I'm sure maybe Superman will get a haircut later on and he'll look more like...
But again, that can't be an accident by Sandoval.
No, not at all.
But he's drawing the similarities between them. But I also, the thing with Lara in the space too is like in traditional mythos, you know, she was an astronaut before she became Jor-El's wife, you know, and have the baby and stuff. So the fact that she was so interested in space travel, I like that they're keeping some of that stuff here. So again, like in the Batman book and the Wonder Woman book, they're still vaguely familiar, but there's these other things, like you said, that are turned up to 11 that make it different.
Yeah. I mean, even like when Lara's talking to the farmer, who at first I actually thought was Jor-El, or maybe even like Jor-El's dad, maybe.
So I thought too,
because he was much older.
Is he wearing a House of L?
He is, yeah. That's why I thought that, but we learn after that everyone in the working class wears this symbol. This is not a family symbol in this universe, which is fine. But when they're talking about the weather and they're complaining that he's paid his rain bill and it's up to 3,000 whatever a month, you know, they criticize and say, I bet Kandor got its rain on time today. So they're critiquing the rich areas for getting their rain, and it's us poor parts of the planet that are always waiting, that are always getting things late. So, I mean, credit to Jason Aaron here, because he builds such a fully realized world in this opening, you know, 15 pages or whatever it is. Which, you know, and it takes time. You know, we start off with Lara and this farmer. We eventually get to Jor-El in the mines and like arguing about whether or not it's safe. And of course, there's tremors, which he obviously is going to link to the fact that the planet's going to be dying soon, because that's just, you know, typical Krypton story. But all of this is super interesting. And of course, you're thinking during this, okay, how long is this before the end of the planet, though? Because in this first portion of the book, there is no indication that there is a Kal-El. There's no indication that they have a son. They don't mention it at all in the first part. It's actually a reveal when we come back to this part of the story, towards the end of the book, that they do have a son. Jor-El's got this look of fear in his eyes that, oh, hey, the planet's dying. Like, our days are numbered here. And then they say, where's Kal? And we're expecting to see a baby. And instead we see a 10-year-old?
Like a preteen,
Yeah, 10, 11, something in that range. So this, kind of like traditional Supergirl, this is a Clark Kent, a Superman, who is going to remember Krypton, because he's narrating the book and he's talking about his parents, and then we get the full context by the end that he's describing them, not just based on what he's learned in a Fortress of Solitude, if he even has such a thing. He's describing them in the way that he remembers them.
Yeah, he knows Jor-El, he knows Lara. You know, it's not, you know, the memories or these, you know, what the Fortress has told them about them. So and I'm sure that'll impact his decisions going forward, right? Yeah.
Like I said, I got a lot of Gattaca vibes when he was describing the social structure of this Krypton. That page where it's like the sun wearers like having like lunch or whatever, and you see like the again, I'll call them the House of El Service staff. They're not actually part of the family, but just for lack of a better term, to like. And I'm like, oh yeah, this makes me think of Gattaca. I'm basically seeing Ethan Hawke right now, cleaning the place when all the astronauts are, you know, the ones that are actually getting to do all the important stuff.
The stuff, Well, and there's always been like that kind of structure to stories about Krypton, right? But because Krypton's a dead planet, we never really see them in in action. So here, Aaron really drives it home by making it seem, like you said, like Gattaca, these other familiar kind of caste systems that exist. So it makes it seem like, when we see Superman on our Earth and what that represents and what he does, it drives that home even more.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, all that stuff's super interesting. It really paints a very different Krypton for what we're used to. And then things really sort of spice up when we get to the present day part of the story. We go to Brazil, and now we basically get this story about this evil company, Lazarus, they're called, and they have been. I mean, just to sum up what they do typically, right? Although Superman explains this has just happened, is that they've got people mining, not unlike Krypton, being forced to mine.
There are parallels.
There absolutely are. But they're mining for diamonds. So they basically released a pocket of asbestos, right? And it started snowing asbestos out into the village where all their families live, and they're forced to keep digging. And so, it really presents this idea of like a Superman before he's quite become Superman, going around and just seeking out particular injustice. But notably, he seems to be targeting this because it's a running thing that this company's been doing all over the planet. Perhaps because, as we learn, he remembers what his parents used to do. Maybe he specifically feels he feels particularly upset by this going on versus everything else that's also probably happening. So the story here is that Superman, for the next day, has snuck into the mines and mined it all himself and crushed all of the rocks into their diamonds, so that the workers don't have to dig anymore. But this just like makes the peacekeepers, we find out, or like the guards, the enforcers here, they're all dressed like peacekeeper. They like
peacemakers.
Sorry, yeah, peacemakers. They start really beating up some of the workers and like demanding to know how this happened, and they even mention, oh, this is just like something that happened in whatever other country. Like there's something going on here. There's something weird. And they start teasing Superman. We sort of see him in a hood the night before talking to one of the workers, and we see his X-ray vision getting used, but it's kind of kept an arm's distance, right? We don't really get a full reveal of him. It's not until the Peacemaker is about to kill, or at least threatening to torture this worker, that we start getting really weird with it, because seemingly Superman, his suit has an AI in it, which is the best way I can describe it right now. Maybe there's more to it than that. But he's regenerating his solar energy, which maybe is something he has to do specifically in the Absolute Universe.
Because they said that he, doing the stuff that he did the night before, expelled a lot of that energy. But it almost looks like he's sleeping in like one of those charging pads that you can drop your phone onto.
I was thinking it looks more like Neo in the Matrix when he wakes up from the... Because he's got a lot of red tubes getting into him.
Yeah, kind of.
I don't know. Anyway, so there's like a military force coming to the town to deal with the fact that, there's something fishy going on here. But Superman wakes up, even though the AI voice keeps telling him not to. This is a bad idea. It seems like the AI voice, which is probably what do you call him?
Helix?
No, not Helix. Eradicator? Is that the word I'm looking for?
Oh yeah. Maybe I can see that.
The reason why I'm saying that is because he says that my purpose is to like maintain you because you're the last of Krypton. So he keeps trying to tell him to not do anything because you should be staying hidden. You should be a secret. So I'm thinking that maybe this is this universe's version of Eradicator.
That makes sense. I was thinking along the lines of Helix, or like even Skeets, like with Booster, that's there to kind of remind him to dial it back. But no, Eradicator makes a lot more sense in that sense.
Yeah, that was my first thought anyway. But Superman, comes out, he fights all these guys, we finally get a full page spread. He is wearing the symbol, there's no cape, at least for now. But he does take on the soldiers, so we get some action sequences and whatever else. So, yeah. But during all this, it cuts to another military force coming from Lazarus who aren't peacemakers. It's just like a SWAT team. But this is the field team for Phenomena. So this is actually a team that's sent in to deal with strange beings or Like I'm kind of getting the impression that this team, you know, are supposed to like bring in stuff like this, right? The peacemakers are just there to do normal security work. This is more
Well,
like,
yeah, they're the brute force. These guys are the ones. This is the science police kind of deal.
yeah.
You know.
So yeah, and there's notably a woman here who sort of deduces a bunch of stuff based on the blurry photographs that they've got of Superman. And I'm only mentioning her because she's going to be important in a few pages' time.
Yeah, what gave it to me was something about her physical features. You know.
So yeah. Anyway, yeah, like the whole big thing is these troops show up. Superman's getting ready to be defiant, but a big metal like handcuff like slaps on his wrist, and it's Agent Lane, the woman there with much shorter hair is Agent Lane, and they seem to have apprehended Superman, and this is where we get the title page actually.
Yeah,
they save it for quite late in the book. So and this arc is called The Last Dust of Krypton, which is a very depressing version of that old saying. So yeah, I mean, I think this was a big moment to go to the title page on. I do think it's interesting having a Lois who is not a reporter, because if I'm going to assume, and I think it's a fair assumption to make, that she's still going to inevitably fall for Superman, then having her fall for him when she's technically supposed to be his prison guard or something akin to that is certainly a different dynamic to play with. So
yeah. It's when they showed her and she has the dark hair, but it's really cut short. But her eyes are still kind of purpley, and I was like, this must be Lois.
Of course, you got it from her eye color.
Come on now,
you nerd. You're such a nerd.
Yeah, I am. And then she also is the first person to call him Superman in this book, right? And I don't know if this is something they've been calling him as they're trying to chase him down, but you know, she's the first person in this to call him that.
And I think it's
interesting.
Yeah, it's when she's arrested him, she says, move and I fry your face, Superman. And Superman's in air quotes. So you can tell she's sort of saying it in kind of like a, not a demeaning way, but like, you know, like they don't really know what to call him yet. Like, but he's been doing all this absurd stuff. Like one of the things they were saying when they were looking at the readings, like, oh, his power levels are off the charts. This is insane, like how strong he is, how fast he is, or whatever.
And the thing I like about it too is when you look at it, like he has this armor that's kind of around him, but it heats up almost like I don't know how to say it, like his extremities start to heat up, so his hands and feet, and it's almost like those are where the solar charge is being emanated from. It's a really cool look. So when she slaps the cuffs on the wrist, it's a big image.
Yeah, he also does that sort of solar blast thing that he's had in recent years, where he kind of does an uncontrollable heat vision explosion, which takes out all the guards. That's right before he gets arrested. But no, it's super interesting status quo. And then it seems like whoever's, I mean, I don't know if it's the person running Lazarus, but it certainly makes me think of Brainiac, this one page of someone who's green and there's like these three purple lights pointing down at him.
Yeah, out in the Nevada desert, it says it's the Lazarus Core R&D department.
Yes.
But there's also bottled things that are screaming in this monitor room. So yeah, very, very Brainiac-esque.
Yeah, the bottled. It's funny though, because those bottled cities or whatever they might technically end up being here, they'll almost look like bonsai trees just in a jar.
Or like molds of stuff, like you know, they look like bacteria colonies or stuff. But the one where it says "kill us, please kill us" actually looks like a city, kind of. You know. But yeah, just definitely, and there's a lot of purples and greens and all that other stuff. So it definitely seems like someone that's using the Brainiac motif is working for Lazarus.
I mean, that's probably Brainiac sitting right there, I'd assume. But I mean, yeah, I don't know. It says a scrumptious new toy. Wonder where you came from. So maybe he's going to become obsessed with finding something Kryptonian based on Superman. And we just get a quick shot of the Kent farm. It says property of Lazarus. It's run down. Clearly, no one's living there right now. So did he live with the Kents? I mean, we don't know.
It looks like something crashed through their roof.
Oh yeah, maybe he killed them by landing inside the house.
Yeah,
that would be the dark twist to this. So yeah, then we get the Krypton stuff that I mentioned earlier, where Jor-El comes back, and we get the reveal that young Clark is actually like a proper kid
Yeah.
here. So
With Krypto, no less. Right next to
yes,
him.
I doubt he's called that though, right?
No, but still, it's
Yeah.
definitely the imagery that's there. I mean, and I just wanted to point out too that it's funny that in Absolute Batman he has a mom, and as of right now, Superman has no parents. So it's almost like they've kind of swapped some things,
Yeah, kinda. Yeah, and
it's like
in a weird way as well, they've kind of swapped like now like Jor-El and Lara. Well, Lara anyway seems to be working on farms, which is something we typically think of the Kents as doing.
Right.
So there's some real switcheroos going on.
Yeah, and we get some a bit of ominous stuff in the final panel of it looks like that green stuff that was coming out of the mines is starting to sprout up around the L's farm.
Yeah, the ground. Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, did you like this, Matt?
Oh, I loved it. It's Jason Aaron, doing a populist kind of Superman, which kind of returns the character to his original roots back from in the 30s, and so the fact that he shows up and it's, not just to help the miners, but keep them out of the mines as they're being exploited, right? Because he's not like trying to just close down the mine. He's just trying to make their jobs easier so they're not exposed to as much asbestos, because like that snow, because the damage has already been done, right? So this is a Superman that's going around and doing things in his own way to help the people and not just, as that superhero in Metropolis. It's one of the things I love about Mark Waid's Birthright so much is a big chunk of the beginning of that is Superman going around the world as Clark, right? And helping people in need.
Yeah, that feels like that's the phase he's in right now in this universe to me. Yeah, I know he's already wearing the S and whatnot, but it feels like that's the phase he's in right now, is the going around and helping people before he becomes the public hero known as Superman.
And like when the kind of the mining leader tries to talk to him, he goes, "What's your name?" He goes, "I don't have a name anymore." Right? So he's doing everything in secret. He's not doing things to, he just wants a better life for people that I'm sure that he relates to, right? Like, because if this is familiar to what he remembers of Krypton, then he wants to at least try to save this planet from that happening,
I wonder if he actually has any natural powers, or he needs the suit like taking in the energy to actually use them. Like, does he have any natural power? Like the X-ray vision would imply yes, but maybe the suit's still a part of that too. I don't know.
Maybe the suit helps channel it, right? And that's why, because when he has the big like supernova explosion, he's telling the suit or Soul, the AI, he's like, "All right, that's enough. I'm overloaded." So it's almost like it helps him, focus that energy, and which would make sense, because if he's like a living solar battery, and he's not quite in control yet, that would make sense.
But I'm wondering, does he even take in solar energy? Is this just something that his father designed for him so that he'd have an upper hand? Maybe physically he doesn't have any advantages. I mean, maybe he does, but like, I'm just because anything could be different here, and because his suit was glowing in this way, where the suit seemed to be the one taking in the energy.
Yeah,
I don't know.
And we haven't seen him fly. We haven't seen him do the super speed. It's mainly like physical strength, invulnerability, and then like energy projection type stuff.
And the X-ray
which is a bit different. Oh, and the X-ray vision, but I would throw that under the energy kind of vibe. So maybe you're right. Maybe the suit and that charging thing, like that brings in the solar energy and then transfers it to him. And if that's the case, what happens if that gets into the hands of the bad guys, which is something that we don't usually have to worry about with Superman, right? So that would definitely be different.
Yeah, I mean, I could be completely wrong here. I'm just sort of spitballing based on what we're seeing in this first issue. I suspect we will see him fly at some point. They might save it till like issue 6 or something like that, but I think they'll make
a big moment out of it, because I mean he does have the cape on the cover, and that is classic iconography of Superman. So yeah, I definitely think he'll fly. It'll just be this big, huge moment, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I liked it a lot as well. I think it really did a good job of building the world. If anything, I like the Krypton stuff even more than the Earth stuff. The Earth stuff's pretty solid.
Yeah.
Like I think it's you know, he's got kind of this harsher attitude, but not in this like, this isn't like Superman Earth 1 where I feel like, oh, you're just missing the point. This definitely feels like you're building a very different world's version of Superman. The Krypton stuff feels very fleshed out to me. It seems, I'm actually genuinely fascinated to see how this progresses to the end of that story, the end of Krypton, which I imagine we'll get to by the end of the first arc of the book via these flashbacks.
And having Clark there and experiencing that kind of does raise the stakes for how he's going to react here on Earth, which I do like. That's a little storytelling thing that
I think that makes sense, that he's a little bit colder and a little bit more cynical because he had to actually experience the death and the ignorance that led to it.
Yeah.
You know?
It's not hope, but it's not despair, right? Which makes sense in this world, right? Where it's kind of been molded by Darkseid. Because he still wants to help, but it's not like you said, he's very cold and just very methodical, and he's doing this just to help because he feels it's
more
right.
like Batman, is what you're saying.
I guess so, right? and so but yeah, he's not this bright, shiny, smiling guy that we're used to seeing. Like in any kind of Superman story, when he makes his kind of first appearance, it's this big, huge, bright,
Yeah, but honestly, the more I think about it, the more it is like Batman. Like he saw like what happened to his parents, what the powers that be on Krypton did to his parents, and he specifically steps in this issue to stop that from happening to other people on Earth because he doesn't want to see it happen again. I mean, that's kind of what Batman's whole shtick is for the most part. Is, this happened to my parents, I'm going to make sure it doesn't happen to anyone else. So
of course,
obviously, I'm sure it'll progress beyond that, but I mean, it's very compelling so far. The art's really strong. I think it. Sandoval's a very he's kind of like the upper tier of house style, where it's house style, but it's a very high quality house style that's always very pleasing to look at, always very expressive. It always makes big moments out of the splash pages and what have you, and it makes you wait. Like you see the S quite early because all the half the characters on Krypton are wearing it, but like it makes a big deal out of that first time you see it on Superman. Like when you see him actually standing up against the Peacemakers.
Big full page, he's dead center, and people are behind him, right? So he's creating it's an actual S shield at that point.
Yeah, I do wonder as well. Like, does he progress to something that's a bit more recognizable as Superman in terms of personality, or is the point that he'll never quite become that because the world that he's in? I genuinely don't know. I could see it going either way, but be very curious to see how it progresses. Especially, I mean, obviously, what they've set up for issue 2 is like, how is the early part of the Superman and Lois Lane story going to play out when they're at this very, very different starting point with each other?
I mean, yeah, because Lois has never been on the opposite side of him, right? Like, even as a reporter, she was reporting what he was doing. She wasn't trying to stop him from what he was doing. So
Matt, I feel like saying ever when we're talking about comic books is a stupid thing to say. Like, I guarantee you there's an issue somewhere.
Yeah, but you know what I mean. In the grand scheme of things.
I do know what you mean, but I'm just like, there'll be an anal commenter who'll be like, Adventure Comics number 182.
And so then I say, I love your encyclopedic knowledge, but that's not part of this lore, so we're fine. All right? Reset, rebirth, all that other stuff, all right? The Monitor says no. That's where I'm at.
Yeah.
But,
when was the last time the word Lazarus was getting thrown around a lot? I feel like it was at some point during this show.
Was that?
Lazarus, the word Lazarus. When was the last time Lazarus was getting thrown around as a word that was being used a lot?
Probably the Lazarus Planet?
Yeah, that sounds right.
So, but yeah, I'm wondering if that is going to be like, this version of Ra's al Ghul is about, he has the Lazarus Company, and it's this big multinational. He's kind of more of a Lex Luthor type, where that's how he's trying to preserve things by controlling everything and whatnot. Because I can't see what's up.
Look, if Ra's al Ghul is going to be one of the main nemesis of Superman in this world, then I feel like Lex has to be a Batman villain then in this world.
I mean, maybe. I'm just saying with the Lazarus name, it would be weird for it to be anybody else. Just because, again, this is still a familiar world. It's not just like the Tangent universe where it's just taking names and applying them to things. But I'm more than happy to be wrong, No,
I mean, I think it makes some sense that in this universe created by Darkseid, in his image, that Ra's al Ghul has kind of succeeded in like controlling like the direction of humanity in the way he wants to, and that ultimately is personified and or materialized in a company that he is using to control all of the wealth and power, and because it really feels like this is a very oppressive company that controls a bit of everything. The fact that it's also on the Kent farm saying property of Lazarus Corp, that just kind of gives you this idea that, oh, this thing, this is like bigger than, I don't know, Apple or something. Like, it's even bigger than that. It's like
so. If you guys are interested in this, if this really hit and scratched an itch, I do recommend there's an arc from Jason Aaron's Thor called The Last Days of Midgard that does, this kind of story of old King Thor in the future trying to restart Midgard after the end of the world. And it's also in the current present day, it's telling a story about Thor going up against Dario Agger, the CEO of Roxxon Corp. And Roxxon Corp is very similar to Lazarus in this, where they're just everywhere. There's Roxxon Gas, Roxxon Media, Roxxon, and in that, at a certain point, Roxxon ends up buying the city of Oklahoma that Asgard appeared over and bans Thor from going there. So now Thor has to find these workarounds to try to help the people from being exploited by Roxxon. So there's a lot of similarities, and you can tell that, Jason Aaron's very comfortable telling this kind of story. But yeah, so if you're digging this first issue and you kind of want a little bit more early, I would definitely check out Last Days of Midgard.
Yeah. All right. What you rating Absolute Superman?
Hold on to your horses. So I'm going to give this a 9.
Okay.
I was thinking you thought I was going to go through the 10, right?
I mean, you kind of set me up for it. You made that sound like it was going...
That's a head fake.
Okay. Yeah, I'm thinking a 9 out of 10 about where I'd go as well. It's really strong in its narrative. It's got its own identity. It feels like it's setting up its own sci-fi world, as opposed to just being a typical Superman story, even though there's obviously a lot of those elements in there. But I mean, honestly, at this point, we're pretty much 3 for 3 on these Absolute books after the issue 1s. Now we'll see how they all keep up that momentum as they go forward. But having all the Trinity land in this Absolute line is not a bad thing to start with, certainly.
And I'm getting a bit over the cart here. I'm very curious to see how this Superman interacts with Wonder Woman and Batman, because they all seem like very loner types, and that's very smart for the Absolute universe, where Darkseid would not want the Justice League assembling at any point, right? Because they've always been a thorn in his side. Yeah,
but you know for a fact that there's probably going, if not like its own mini-series, some sort of crossover or something, like after they've all done their first arcs, I bet you were going to do a this is how they all first meet story.
But I'm very excited for that kind of thing, because I want to see the dynamics there, because they are also, solitary and singular so far through one. I mean, I know it's only one issue, right? But, they seem independent of other heroes. So it's very curious to see how they would react upon with each other. But yeah, just good stuff all around with this Absolute line so far.
Absolute Superman issue 2, Jason Aaron writing with Rafa Sandoval on the art. So, we left off last time. Lois is part of this this group of the Peacemakers.
The Lazarus.
The Lazarus, yes. And she's handcuffed herself with this fancy, super-powered titanium handcuff to Clark, who... there was a weird thing here actually, where I wasn't sure what they were doing, but like he kept calling them chuffs, and I thought, wait, is this a spelling of cuffs that I'm unfamiliar with? And I eventually saw the AI in his suit said it's cuffs, Cal, it's cuffs, and I'm like, oh, thank you for addressing that, because I thought I was losing my goddamn mind. Anyway, so
you thought he was just saying it differently, so it was like they had put a phonetic there to make it sound like he was mispronouncing.
Or maybe just that this was an accepted alternate spelling or something of cuffs with like a hard ch or something. But I appreciated it finally being addressed after a few pages.
Mm-hmm.
So Lois is like tied to Superman, and he has to fight off whatever, the soldiers coming for him. And then eventually, when they all fire at him, there's a lot of chaos, helicopters falling out the sky and whatnot. I guess the big thing here is what they've done here with the cape and how that's different.
It's so what they do here is he keeps calling it dust, right? He's like, the dust will protect you. And so it's almost like a nanoform kind of thing. It's almost like a cloud that he can kind of control and make like a barrier, so he uses it to block these weapons that Lazarus is shooting at him and Lois, even though she tells him to stop. Very, very curious, because then we also find out it's sunstone technology from Krypton. Then we find out from Soul, and then in the backstory we get on Krypton later in the book, it gets more into detail. One of the running jokes throughout this is, as Lois and Cal are handcuffed together, so he has this energy of Soul of his suit wrap around, and it's trying to tinker with the cuffs to get them off, but the cuffs keep changing. It's this different kind of metal, so I was thinking kind of how T-1000 is. And as the suit's trying to get them uncuffed, Lois keeps shooting him with her energy weapon, and at a point Cal goes, "Will you please stop that?" And it kept making me laugh every time she shot him. Like, it was very, not quite a buddy cop scenario, but it was up there. Very, very kind of Looney Tunes kind of thing. And automatically, Aaron gets this dynamic between Lois and Clark where it's vaguely familiar, but it's not what we're used to. There's definitely a back and forth between them as they're doing this. So I appreciated that.
Yeah.
Back to the Land of the Living.
Yeah, I think the cape thing's interesting, especially since visually it is kind of like a cloud at times, but it does sort of solidify at moments and looks more like a cape. Yep. It's they already sort of shook up the the typical Superman thing with having this voice coming from the suit, so it already feels wildly different. But the cape especially feels like a completely flip on what we're normally used to. It feels a lot more sci-fi and a lot more
a lot more alien.
A lot more alien, yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, because it's this amorphous thing that's constantly changing, and there's this really fun panel where he's carrying Lois after, when was it? They get shot out of the sky by the tanks, and they land in front of this old church, and he's walking forward into the foreground carrying her. And just the way that the cape comes up, it looks very, very traditionally Superman, right? But yeah, a lot of fun imagery that can happen with this thing.
Yeah, a lot of the art here is quite good. The cape feels so different to what we normally used to see with Superman. The idea that it's like Lois, when she's dragged up into the sky when he takes off, like she's kind of like almost like just kind of like engulfed with it. Like she's like kind of like covered in this red mist almost that's around her. But then there's times though when it kind of like when the missiles are coming after them and the cape kind of naturally forms around them in like a protective. It looks more like a cape at this point, even though it's still a little bit like particle looking. But it does sort of come around like a cape would if you were sort of using it to shield yourself. But it also covers Lois, so there's some really fun little touches in the art here. And like you said, yeah, after he lands, after getting knocked down, and he's carrying Lois, it looks probably the most traditional cape like it's looked in the entire issue at that point. So I think visually, if nothing else, it's really playing with what we're used to seeing with Superman, and it stuck out quite a bit.
And we get that cool moment too after, so they keep pursuing and come out that the tanks are helitanks. So, they have rotors and they come up and they start pursuing Lois and Cal. And, of course it starts blowing up this little town he landed in, and there's people. So he does the Superman thing of going in to save them. And he comes out carrying these people with Lois, right? Because they're still handcuffed together. And it's, the cape is cradling these people. So it's not just him holding them. The cape also has, has that kind of form. And it's another, it's a new kind of Superman imagery, but it's still playing on the traditional.
Yeah, there's some action in here that you skipped over, where he picks up a car and throws it at the helicopter. So there's more sort of big effects and action as that goes down. And yeah, like this Lazarus, don't seem to care about the collateral damage. At one point, like they even say, "Oh, we don't even care if we hit Lois. We don't care that our agent's there. Just fire everything we've got at him." That's very much their attitude. And what's interesting is we get towards the end, right around that imagery of when there's innocent civilians in danger here, and he goes to rescue them, and even Lois is carrying a kid as they're walking out of the fire.
Yeah.
When that happens, the narration, which is clearly a piece of writing, or it turns out to be her like report to her superiors afterwards, but like that starts to come in, and she starts describing him. A couple things stick out to me is one, she does confirm that it's not all just the suit that's doing stuff, that he himself does seem to be enhanced in some way. Now, how much of like what he's doing is physically Superman here, and how much of it is the suit being some sort of fancy super suit, I suspect that's something we're going to define as time goes on, and we'll understand better what's the suit doing and what, because it feels like the cape is probably more to do with the suit or its own thing, as opposed to he's controlling it with his mind, or it's coming from his body. I don't expect that, just based on what they've shown here. But yeah, he probably is stronger. He probably is whatever. My question is here though. Did he fly in this issue? Because obviously he takes off, but when Lois is talking about it after, she refers to it as a long jump. So I'm not sure yet if we've confirmed that he can fly.
Which is a single bound, right? Playing with the Superman.
Yeah, it's the classic leap in a single bound stuff, yeah.
And stuff. So yeah, so maybe he doesn't, so maybe he can fly, right? Through the use of the cape and the energy, but here he expelled so much, because before this all started, he was still charging.
I mean, I think you're even making it too complicated. I think it might be as simple as he can't fly yet. It's something that's going to happen during the course of the story, is he'll like unlock that power or realize that he can do it. I see that as a big moment they can maybe play with, is the moment that he realizes he can actually just fly.
Because we do also get the cold breath, the frost breath here at the end as well. So we do know that there is some of the typical Kryptonian physiology at play here.
Yeah, we get the cold breath, and it looks like he's got a little bit of heat vision as well. Or at the very least, it's more like the capes get into his eye, now that I'm looking at it properly. But yeah, so basically Lois has a choice here where she's going to take out her weapon and shoot him again after he's like saved all these people, and she ends up deciding not to, and she like puts her gun back down, and he actually says thank you. So it's kind of a moment where, she actually says you're welcome for one, but it feels like, at the end of this scene, like it's not just the cop and like perpetrator relationship anymore. At the very least, she's learned to respect him a little bit. But he does kind of drop a couple of things that gets her thinking. Like, for example, he refers to like this planet at one point, which gets her asking about, wait, what's your planet then? Is this not your planet? And just as he's about to maybe go into it a little bit more at the end, the cape is able to release the cuffs, and so he takes off again. Is he flying? Is he just jumping away? We don't really know yet, but I did like that panel though, both of him taking off, but also at the bottom of her just looking up as the helicopters are coming in behind her, because this is her world. She's from this world with this team, and clearly the seeds have already been planted that she's going to start sympathizing with Superman and not be, believing in what the company motto is or whatever anymore. And yeah, there you go.
Well, because that's her report, right? So that's what I like that Aaron does here, is that we get introduced to Lois as the writer here, in that that she starts writing her report through this Lazarus AI, right? She's calling it the Brainiac, and this is how we're getting her point of view as this action sequence is unfurling. And so, she already gets it where she's starting to kind of doubt, not necessarily the mission, but like there is something more to him, right? That she saw there was other things, that he was taking care not to hurt random people and stuff, so he's not maybe as much of a threat as they thought he was before.
Well, you say they, but it's not they. It's just her, because
it's her,
because she specifically says, she says certain things, and then the Brainiac AI that she's like sort of reporting into kind of reads what she says incorrectly, and sort of says, because he's like, oh, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much of a threat is he? And she sort of describes, something, and it's clearly not meant to make him sound intimidating. And the Brainiac AI just goes, oh, he's an 8. Noted. It's like, that's not what I said. I did not say he's an 8-level threat. So she kind of like decides to go and actually write a traditional report, and it makes a big deal here that she hates writing reports, but at the end of writing this, she actually says she feels good, and it's almost like she's never written a news article before, and this is kind of like the birth of that part of her character in a weird way, where she appreciated like writing the truth, and I think especially this idea that there's an AI, whether or not it's actually an AI or it's whatever, but like messing things up and misinterpreting things, the idea of like going back to the traditional way of writing to get the truth out, and the idea that here it's not so much about this lifelong attempts to be a journalist and that being something that's in her, but more that at a certain point she has this realization that just writing the truth and trying to expose what the reality is something that appeals to her, as opposed to it being sort of tied to just a job that she always wanted in the first place. This is kind of like, it's being born out of the situation she's in rather than just a traditional Lois Lane story. So it's I mean, this was good stuff again. It was kind of, I mean, most of it's action, but it's really good action because it's all the first interactions between Superman and Lois. It shows him try to save her, but it kept it interesting, not just because the art was great and not just because it was doing really interesting things with the pacing and sequencing, but just for the fact that so much of it was new stuff. It's like, okay, what is this cape? How does it work? And we get a new flavor of it, like with each passing page of this is how it functions, this is how it can be used, and there's still questions to be asked. Yeah, the Sunstone thing's brought up, and we know that's technology from Krypton, or a resource from Krypton at the very least, but and we get a bit more of the flashbacks, a little bit at the start, but a lot at the end, with basically Clark gets into trouble because he actually tried to interpret history on his own rather than just taking from the textbooks, and his teacher wasn't particularly fond of that.
And I liked how that paralleled Lois, right? Questioning the Brainiac AI there at the end, is that they seem to be having the same kind of reaction to this thing. And it also kind of parallels the fate of Krypton with maybe the fate of Earth, right? If things keep going that way with Brainiac and whatever. So I did like that. And it also shows that Clark already has this, well, keep saying Clark, we don't know about the Kents, right? But Cal, we see that he does have his parents' spirit. Yeah,
we right now legitimately do not know what age Clark is when he gets to Earth. We do not know. He might have aged in the journey. Like, so he could have been like 20 by the time he arrived on Earth in this universe. Yeah. We don't know.
Because it says at the beginning, Krypton, the Red Land, 6 years ago. So is that 6 years to Clark? Is that 6 years of Krypton? Is that 6 Earth years? Like, we don't know. But for the sake of this part of the story, it was 6 years. And
that'll just be 6 Earth years then. So that would to me says that he's about 18 in the present day story, and he's probably about 12. Because he seems
he's about middle school age here.
Yeah, so that to me says that he's about 12 in the flashbacks, and he's about 18 or so in the present day stuff. Yeah, I think you're overthinking it, but starting to question if it's Kryptonian years.
Well, I'm just saying because of the flashback and whatnot. Right.
Well, yeah, but that information is not in universe. That information is something the writer's telling us so that we can understand
that's correct. Definitely overthinking. But yeah, no, just it drives home the point that he's like his parents, right? He's his parents' son. Is that they were constantly questioning things. Now he's questioning, right? And yeah, so I liked all that type of stuff.
Yeah, and the flashbacks at the end are of his parents basically sprucing up Lara's old design for a ship to leave Krypton. And at this point, they're not saying, hey, we're just going to build a little ship for a kid and like get him out of here. They're hoping to try and evacuate more, if not everyone, if they can convince everyone what's going on. But as we established in the first issue, though, they're kind of like the working class, like, you're unimportant because we've decided genetically, because of your house and your symbol, you're not one of the Science League, so you don't get listened to. So they're like, Jor-El's being kind of hopeful. Oh, we'll convince them. We'll talk to them, and it's like, yeah, but we're from the Redlands. We're not important. They're not going to listen to us. And because obviously it's Krypton, we know they're not going to listen to them. that's
Yes.
almost a foregone conclusion to us as the audience. But at least at this point, though, their plan is to try and save more than just their son. Obviously, well, I was going to say obviously we expect that it will just be him, but who knows?
Who knows?
Yeah. What if Jor-El and Lara get in a ship with him, but they die on the way to Earth or something? Like, we don't know how they've changed things here.
Yeah, so I was thinking about that too, because we have gotten differences in Batman and Wonder Woman in the Absolute Universe, but there's a thing here where he talks about where Lois talks about like he's someone that feels like where's it at? About being a boy. He's very much still a boy, one who hasn't fully deciphered who he is. And talks about like he looks like he's looking for like role models, kind of, not necessarily role models, but I'm trying to find it here. But he still reminds me of a lost child, a son without a home, a deep mistrust of authority. So it definitely feels like not necessarily he's an orphan, but he's someone that is, not being guided by parents. So yeah, maybe they did get off planet, but they didn't survive the trip. Right. So that would just change things differently enough. But oh yeah, it definitely made me think with the changes that have happened in the other two books, like, oh, maybe he does. Maybe he's trying to get back to Lara and Jor-El. Right. But I'm not too certain after reading that part.
Yeah, no, I just, like, we don't know what they've changed, and part of me is even like, wait, is Krypton even gone? Did they say that in the first issue? I'm assuming they did, but now I'm questioning it and going...
I'm questioning it too, because it's like, well, we know Krypton could be a disaster, but we just know that he got off. We know that Kal is here.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, what if he just left Krypton because, like, the powers that be killed his parents or something like that, and he just fled?
And he's a refugee in that way, and now he's also on the run from Krypton, and he doesn't want them to find Earth, right? Because now this is just another place for them to come and mess up.
Yeah, he's not a refugee from a world that's dead. He's a refugee potentially from a world that like mistreats him, or what is going to come after him. That's hostile.
Yeah. So, I mean, that would be a change enough. And that's also with what we know from the All In book, right, is that Darkseid's trying to create this universe without hope. And what would be more, stripping from hope than that story of Superman that wants to do right by the sins of Krypton. But what if the sins of Krypton aren't what they used to be, right? What if they're like this almost colonial power, kind of like an Invincible, right? How they twisted that, and he's kind of on the run. He's almost like a refugee from a hostile, country type deal.
Yeah, and for the record, like, I'm not suggesting that I'm seeing hints of this specifically. I'm just I'm realizing how open it actually is for, like, the fact that we're getting this flashback story building up to how the Krypton stuff is going to, like, play out in this universe is making me think that there's going to be something very different about it by the time we actually get to why he's on the ship and why he leaves the planet. Whether that's because Krypton doesn't actually explode, whether that's because his parents don't die on Krypton and come with them and somehow die somewhere else or something. But I'm expecting something big and meaningful to be different. I mean, the fact that Clark's, like, alive is like a 12-year-old on Krypton's already very different, obviously. But I'm kind of expecting, like, because we're devoting so much time to building up to the actual, end of the planet, or the end of, like, at least his time on the planet, I'm expecting something else to kind of, like, be revealed later on in this flashback story. But as far as a journey of discovery goes, it's been a very exciting book so far, even just 2 issues in. I think both issues have done a good job at playing with new mechanics and new things. This first sort of meeting between Superman and Lois being this kind of hostile relationship, but just by the end of it, her seeing him going out of his way to save people and being somewhat inspired by his naivete, as she puts, this idea that he's still not quite fully grown up, but he's trying to like figure out who he is. That's interesting to me. So, yeah, all Absolute books had good second issues. Here we are.
Yeah, I also like there's this page at the end where it's after the flashback to Krypton, and it picks up where Lois is writing.
There's a couple of
And
pages at the end. Yeah, there's a
yeah,
one that's just like her saying, "Oh, that felt good to write that," and she sees the the written by Lois Lane on the report. It's not even an article; it's just a report. But yeah, there's just a little tag at the end where these peacemakers actually go out of their way to kill the civilians that
he helped.
Were saved by Superman. Yeah, so
because peace has a price, and that went dark. That went from, again, where, oh, okay, Lois is writing, she's kind of becoming the Lois that we're familiar with, and Clark's crossing from Brazil into Venezuela, right? And there's a curious thing here where it says Lazarus means death, join the Omega Men. So there's a something, right, where it's like, I know the Omega Men are something different, but knowing that Darkseid has a role in All In the Absolute Universe, that was curious. But yeah, that peace has a price, right? That he's on his way out. He thought he's done well. He's saved these people from this Lazarus thing, and they show up and wipe him out anyways. So it's almost like it was all for nothing. And again, very, very kind of dark ending on an otherwise, it was on the upswing.
Yeah, it's a darker universe for sure. And these characters at the end, it's just like, oh, we're going to punish these people because we have to show them that. I mean, obviously, yeah, they keep saying peace has a price, but more specifically, they feel butthurt, and they're going out of their way to do this out of spite almost. So, yeah, it does say next time, last days of Krypton, so maybe we'll get our answers as to what's different about the Krypton stuff. More so next time.
So this one, I came into this because it's Jason Aaron, like a lot more excited than some of the other ones. And so far through 2 issues, this is kind of what I expected the Absolute Universe to be, where just enough changes. But Aaron seems to be taking the core of Superman as this kind of man of the people, kind of traditionally what he used to be back in like the 30s. And he's flushing him out that way. And I wasn't expecting that aspect, right? I was expecting a different kind of Superman, a kind of more darker, sci-fi driven Superman. But him becoming this, again, man of the people, traveling, from place to place where they need help, the kind of rogue hero, I really like.
Yeah, and because it's not so much that he's made Superman darker, he's just made the world that Superman's in a bit darker. Yeah. But he's also made Superman a little bit more lost, because I don't think he has the Kents. Like, if I was to guess right now, I would say he's not had Martha and Jonathan Kent. Maybe he'll meet them later. Maybe that'll be something that happens down the line. Don't forget,
in the first issue, we did get that quick cutaway to the Kent house, and it had a big hole in the roof.
That's right. So, yeah. But if maybe him landing killed them. Like he landed in the house and they died.
But this is also a older Clark, right? That when he arrives, he's already going to be older. So what would he have learned anyways? And like, what if this is on his conscience? What if his arrival here hurting people, is still weighing on him? That's why he's kind of going around trying to help things.
There's a guilt quality to it, first and foremost, perhaps. Yeah.
But so far it's just really good stuff. And then Sandoval's art is it like, again, I keep saying dark, but it's not dark. It plays with these shadows, because the cape and stuff is dark red, right? But then it's offset by whatever that energy that's coming off of him is, off of the suit. It almost looks like it's like lava hands, for lack of a better term, right? It's playing with that almost as a light source. So anywhere you see the cape and that energy projection, it seems to lighten up everything around it. So again, it's almost Superman bringing light into a dark realm, and just everything with the colors and the art, it's really hitting.
Yeah, and it's worth mentioning as well, you can see it because he kind of gets naked at one point when the cape's kind of like fixing him up or charging him or whatever it is. You can actually see that the suit forms around him out of this sort of like sun energy. You can sort of see it going up his arm as if it's like nanobots are building it. So his suit is very different from what traditional Superman's outfit is. So no, really interesting discovery process so far.
Yeah.
On this one, it's been very compelling to read up until this point. Matt, what are you giving Absolute Superman issue 2?
I'm gonna give this a 9.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue with that much. I think I might just bump it down slightly to 8.5, just because I think the first issue was just that bit tighter in its structure. But I mean, this was very thrilling to read, and the first steps of the Superman and Lois relationship were well done. But for the most part, though, it was really the excitement of seeing like how the cape functions and all the action that comes with that, with being shot out of the sky and the throwing of the cars and whatnot. So really, really solid stuff. Absolute Superman issue 3, Jason Aaron writing with RAFA Sandoval on the art. And this issue, barring 1 or 2 pages at the end, is all flashback. It's all on Krypton, on the build-up to its destruction. Well, it doesn't quite get to the destruction yet, but it's imminent by the end of the issue.
It is building. Like, it is, yeah. We're at a critical mass.
Yeah, so it kind of... It does some interesting things here. It really sets up this idea that Clark already has it in him to want to be a writer and report on things and tell the truth, because he gets into trouble for like not using the Kryptonian dictionary or whatever they called it.
Yeah, and I gotta give Aaron credit here that he makes Krypton feel like such a dystopia. Like in other versions that we said, like even just like in the Mark Waid action run, like it felt still like, oh, we know Krypton's doomed, and yeah, some of the politicians are kind of crappy, but it didn't feel much like a dystopia. This version of Krypton, it just feels like it's barely hanging on, but just with the way that the L's talk about the different guilds and how they congratulate Clark for wanting to think for his own. Well, Cal, he's not Clark yet, but Cal for wanting to think on his own and all that other stuff. And yeah, it's kind of subtle and it's just underneath, but it feels like something rotting underneath a nice cover.
Yeah, I mean, it's Clark talking about his his last like trip out to like camp or whatever with his parents, and we see these big red crystals that look like the Fortress of Solitude. They call it the Rouse. Yeah, basically they're hiding from him right now what's going to happen. They both know that Krypton's doomed, and they've not told him yet. But Clark, over the course of this issue, between noticing his parents working away at building something in the barn and whatever else, and also noticing that there's this is the other thing I kind of liked actually, is this idea that a lot of like animals are dying, and it kind of looks like they're getting kryptonite poisoning. It's almost like this idea of kryptonite's already starting to happen on the planet while they're still there, which I think is really interesting.
Yeah, it's like the planet's rotting. Yeah, it's like the planet's rotting from the inside out, and now it's starting to reach the surface. And of course, the animals these are like harbingers of doom, kind of.
Yeah, the rabbits and farm animals and all that kind of thing, they're all dying. So that's all super interesting. But ultimately, Jor-El still wants to like try and convince the council or the Science League what's going to happen, that they should do something, and they're basically just silenced. In fact, hell, even Superman or Clark's like paper that he tried to write for class was kind of like it wasn't just given into trouble for it. It was like taken away and everything was deleted. Like no, this is all redacted. You can't talk about this. We're not doing this. So
censored, as I believe the word.
Yeah. So there's something clearly up, and it all kind of bubbles up to this revelation when Clark's on a field trip with his class to where the Science League and all that like run things. He sees his dad being carted away with these armed guards, but he takes the opportunity afterwards to ask one of the guards who... Actually, no, this comes a little bit later. Sorry, I'm skipping ahead. But he has to run and get his mom and say, hey, Dad's been like held prisoner because he tried to tell them something. And Lara comes out wearing basically the suit that he's going to have when he's older, with the sort of sun gauntlet looking things and whatnot, and also a massive freaking like solar gun.
Look, I'm gonna say I don't think that Jor-El and Lara have ever been cooler than they have been in these 3 issues.
I will say that panel of her coming out with the gun and saying, "I'm going to get your dad back." I don't think I've ever once thought of Lara L as being hot, except for this issue where I'm like, what? They're trying to make her kind of hot in this issue, and it's kind of working.
Yeah, very, very much Sarah Connor in T2, right?
Got a little bit of that vibe.
We're doing this. And also the fact that she tells Clark to stay there, and if you need anything, contact Soul. And he goes, "What's Soul?" And then the voice that we've seen in the lettering box, activates.
the AI, or for lack of a better term. Although it doesn't stay there, like she says, you're coming with, and if anything happens, to run back and ask Saul,
get Saul,
because he goes with her. Notably, because when she starts like blasting through all these like hallways and whatnot to get to Jar, Clark actually grabs one of the guards and says, "Hey, tell me your login details, and I won't. I'll ask my mom kindly to stop shooting you." And so, which seemingly works, because he gets into the computer and sort of reads like what's going on, and what he sees is, and I kind of got this just from this moment, but he explains it later when he's talking to his parents, and the story that he kind of leaks out there to the world. But this is effectively an arc. He's seeing these ships being built for the rich to leave Krypton, and of course, because this is an alternate universe, I'm thinking, wait, did they all leave? Are all the rich assholes from Krypton still alive out there in space? Because it seems kind of possible.
Yeah, because the field trip that they go to is the city they go to on this field trip is Kandor, right? So I was wondering if is this the Absolute's version of Kandor?
Yeah, they're just on ships traveling on a bottled city. Yeah.
Bottle and being wrapped up and whatnot. And yeah, I thought that was a nice twist here.
Yeah, no, I immediately I was like, oh no, they do know. It's not that they don't believe Jar, because normally in like Krypton lore and Superman lore, they are ignorant. They're like, no, this isn't going to happen. They're arrogant, and then they're caught off guard by actually being real, and it's too late to do anything. This is flipping it to say, no, they know about it. They're just keeping it secret so they can save themselves and not like deal with the rest of the population. And that's actually, more sinister. It's a lot more evil.
Yeah, it is. And the fact too that the labor guild, right? And Clark at the beginning knowing like he doesn't feel like he wants to join the Science Guild or any of the other ones because he feels like he's part of the Earth. And like when they get onto that big skyscraper on the field trip, he's just like, we're too far away from the ground, which I also think is a fun little, a little tweak
Matt,
on Superman.
You threw me there because you said Earth. I'm like, what do you mean Earth? It's not Earth.
Yeah, the ground, like
the ground,
the Earth. Yeah.
Yeah, but you wouldn't call it the Earth on Krypton.
Does Clark say the dirt? They're too far from the dirt then?
Probably dirt, yeah. But yeah, it would be cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
Or something.
No, it would not be that. But yeah, it would, but anyways, it's too far off the ground. And again, that's a fun little tweak considering Superman and flight and whatnot. What we come to expect with Superman is that he's not comfortable being that far away from the ground.
Yeah, he wants to be amongst the people, or he wants to be down there with the hardworking people. And then the other big reveal, because obviously, like, okay, we heard earlier on, his parents are building something in the bar, and they're driving back in these speeder bikes. They're going to show him, they're going to explain to him what's going on. And he reveals that he's figured out Krypton's dying based on what he's seen and what he's just read on the computer and all that. But the big reveal here is that, no, they didn't just build a little ship for him. They built a ship for them. In fact, they're going to try and even take anyone else they can. We can maybe fit. I mean, obviously they can't fit everyone, but like, hey, we can fit some family, we can fit some friends, some neighbors. Maybe Kara ends up on this ship because they actually say the word cousin at one point. Or cousins. So
and family, it's not just them. They're not thinking of, this isn't like you said with traditional, right, where they only have enough time to get Clark out of there as a baby.
Yeah, although having said that, we don't know how these events are going to play out. It's entirely possible that the events might end up it being just Clark because of whatever happens at the last minute before they're able to go into the ship, or because it is the Absolute Universe, it could be all three of them. It could be three of them plus more.
Yeah.
We don't know.
Yeah. It definitely made me think though too the fact that we haven't seen the Kents yet. Outside of that farm.
We'll get to that later because that was actually something that I thought was really neat about this story. When we get to that last couple of pages and it goes to Smallville and you get your sort of first glimpse at Martha Kent, is I was thinking, oh yeah, because as soon as it went to Smallville, I went, yeah, that's a good point. If this plays out differently and possibly his parents come with him potentially, then what role do the Kents have, if anything? But then the last page kind of implies that no, like there was some motherly role for Martha Kent to Superman or someone else potentially. It may not be him because all we know is that she never gave birth to any kids, but she asked for her son.
Yep.
Now, we assume that's Clark because,
Right.
you know, traditional Superman, but
Right.
they could be setting us up for a swerve here.
Mm-hmm.
What if Martha raised Zod?
Right.
I mean, that's a bit out there, but you know what I mean.
And if you notice too, the military guild, their symbol, like the labor symbol is what we associate with the House of L, the S. The military guild is the Zod symbol. You know, it kind of makes that Z. So there's little hints of Zod thrown in.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically how the issue ends, is that Clark says, where are we going? Like, sort of the optimism in his eyes, and our final couple pages is, or just one page even, is, you know, the retirement home in Smallville. And the two, like, nurses are talking about how, oh, she doesn't have any next to kin, she doesn't have any kids, but she keeps asking for her son. In fact, Martha specifically sort of, I mean, she's a bit delirious here, so maybe we shouldn't read into this too much, but she does refer to whoever she's talking about as Angel, which does imply someone who fell from the sky. So, yeah.
And also that this is, the stuff on Krypton is meant to be from 6 years ago too, right?
That's true.
So,
yeah.
And she's pretty old as well, right? So, you know, at this point, who knows what happens in between the fight from Krypton and Smallville.
Well, no, but I think it raises a bigger question. I think you're missing something even bigger there. If the stuff in Krypton's only 6 years ago, then it kind of implies whoever Martha raised, assuming it's not Clark, is from before the destruction of Krypton. So what are we going to find? So what are we going to find out later about someone who left early for some reason? Right,
that makes sense too.
You know, because 6 years, 6 years is not enough time. Even if Superman gets to Earth like 6 months, and even I assume it'd be longer than that. But let's just say it's 6 months after they leave Krypton, and somehow needs to be adopted. Like, I don't know. It's a little bit quick for her to like be on her deathbed and be talking about her son as if she raised him when he was already like 12 or whatever he is. So I don't know. I think there's some interesting like things to be revealed here. It feels like it's setting us up for some more swerves and some more spins on how this stuff is actually working. So
yeah, because if you look at the picture by the table, right, it looks like it's someone with dark hair that, you know, what we think of as Clark, but this is not how our Clark, how absolute Clark looks, right, with the long hair and whatever else.
Well, I mean, that picture's at an angle that's so skewed that you can't really, like, other than the dark hair, you cannot tell anything from that image. It's intentionally pretty vague. Like, you can tell it's probably, but I'll be honest, I don't even think you can tell from that image if it's a male or female. You can't.
That's true.
That could easily be a woman standing with the Kents.
That's true. Oh my God, what if it's Laura that's the angel, right? And she says son though, so.
But does she? Oh, she does. Yeah, my sweet angel boy. Yeah. She does say boy.
Yeah, it's angel boy.
Ignore my questions of gender then. But my point being though is that I mean, like, that could easily turn out to be anyone but Clark as well.
Yeah.
From that image.
Definitely some curveballs being thrown out through here.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely like the decision to make this mostly a flashback after, you know, where issue 2 left off at, you know. So we get to see more of the Krypton stuff and how much different it is. And it keeps, you know, showing how much, you know, the whole rotting of Krypton, right, from inside out, and the upper guilds knowing about this and having their own plans before. It does add a sinister quality to it that they're just going to let everybody else, you know, suffer. And that kind of would definitely inform Clark later on in the stuff that we've seen, right, with him helping the miners and all that other stuff.
Yeah, he's helping the people on the ground who are being taken advantage of by the rich and the powerful, which is very much the sort of people on Krypton who screwed over like entire, you know, basically everyone, really.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, I mean, it sets up a lot of his motivations for sure. It gives him a lot of like stuff already built into his character that he feels strongly about. But again, let's not just shove aside the whole part here right before the issue ends, where he has leaked what he's learned from the computer as a news story out to everyone on Krypton, right? Because Jor-El and Lara see it playing out on their smartphone or equivalent Krypton technology.
Yeah.
And they're like, wait, they're talking about this, and because they learn about the ships, because much as they knew about Krypton dying, like Clark has actually revealed new things to them through this reporting, and that ties back into what Clark was saying earlier, is that his words feel like they mean something to him, whereas like just copying the words of other people doesn't feel special, doesn't feel like they're his. So this it's actually really interesting to sort of like build this like journalistic passion into him, and admittedly they can't usually most times you can't do that on Krypton because he's like one at most by the time he's leaving. But it's interesting to do it this way.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I don't know,
for sure.
I think it's interesting. I think it's a really interesting like quirk or even quirk. That's underplaying it, but just a different way of telling the story of how he becomes who he is. So no, super fascinating. I think out of the three Absolute books, this is the one where it feels like it's flipping almost everything. Where, well, there's obviously stuff flipped in the other books, and especially the last issue, Absolute Batman. I really liked how his mother being alive left to a very un-Batman decision by the end of the issue. So that book's doing a good job of using what's different to really drive the story. I feel like this one, there's so much up in the air that is still a mystery because we don't know how much has changed, but it's implying a lot of things. There's a lot more of like a puzzle box element to talking about it, and like, okay, like who's surviving Krypton, who's alive, who's not alive, who grew up with who, questions.
Yeah, it's really playing with what we think we know versus how it's going to be presented. Because Wonder Woman's been mostly straightforward, right, from the beginning. Like, yes, that last issue really threw a curveball into what it means to be, a hero. But for the most part, it's just it's still Wonder Woman with some stuff swapped. So not so much of a mystery.
Which is fine. So which is fine because it's not trying to be. That's trying to be this more hardcore monster story. Batman's trying to be this ultra gritty take on Gotham and all those characters. This is going for something very different from those two, but they're all benefiting from being so different. That's part of what's actually making the line of books work so well right now, is that all three Absolute books feel very unique on their own and very like successful at their own thing that they're all doing.
Yeah, that's what I was going to get to. That all their strengths, each book's unique. They all have an identity. It just doesn't feel like a line-wide thing. Right? It's like, oh yeah, this is the Absolute version, and they are different, but each book shows you exactly how they're different, and they're different in different ways.
Yeah,
I think helps because I like coming back for the mystery of this one, right? But in Batman, I like seeing it play out how Snyder is unveiling, like, just how similar this Batman is. It's still Batman, right? But like you said, I still haven't read 3, so I don't know what decision you're talking about.
Oh, well, I'm glad I was vague then.
yes. So I'm curious to see where that goes. But like, definitely with Wonder Woman, it still, from all the Wonder Woman books that I've read, it still feels very much in line. But, it's just like, again, like I guess this is what the Ultimate line felt like when it first came out, right? Is back when Marvel was doing that thing. It was like, oh, here's different versions or refreshed versions of these heroes. And each of them had an identity until the point that it got to where, it just was, Marvel, but, I'm trying to remember the exact thing that I read about when they decided to end the Ultimate line. Is like they were just repeating stories now through these new different heroes. That doesn't feel like this, just through 3, of course, but they all have this unique identity. And I appreciate that.
Yeah, I think this is a little bit different. Like, as much as it's the easiest thing to compare it to is the Ultimate stuff from Marvel from like 20 plus years ago, this feels a lot more focused because it's kind of tied into something that's building up to actually interact with the main universe. Now, that's not to say that all this stuff will just end when that happens. I think since they're all successful, it's entirely possible there'll be a desire to keep absolutes of some of the characters going forever. And if that happens, then cool. Especially if they're distinct enough where they feel like they're worth having around as alternate versions. But and we haven't really mentioned Rafa Sandoval's art. It is pretty good. I enjoyed it. I think all the big money moments, whether it's you know, very. I mean, Lara gets like multiple splash page moments in this where she's in her full body armor, or she's like saying she's going to get Jor out of prison. Those moments are quite good. I like the 2-page kind of layout, which is lots of like horizontal panels of when Clark just sort of like drives around on his little bike thing and like sees all the dead animals and is like, he's becoming aware. He's discovering. He's reporting, basically. He's investigating. Yeah. And he's finding all these things. I thought those handled well, and I think it really sticks out as well is that other than the sort of the green kryptonite looking mist coming from these dead animals, the color green does not appear at all, like in this story.
Oh yeah.
You know, so it really pops out and feels like, oh no, danger. The green, which is funny because red's normally a danger color, but red here is treated as no. Some of the just the natural monoliths that are here are red. Yeah. But you know, it's kind of an interesting color distinction. But obviously, it makes sense to us because with Superman, green is the dangerous color because that's the one that counteracts him.
Well, yeah. Even when they try to attack Lara, right? The military guys, and they say commencing lethal injection, right? That mist that comes out of there is green. Is that same dangerous?
That's true. You're right. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, so yeah, definitely some storytelling via coloring here.
Yeah. Yeah. Green's the danger. It's almost like you know, people make fun of Green Lantern for having the weakness yellow for a long time before they fixed it. Yeah. And they didn't retcon it, but they retconned an explanation and then fixed their explanation. Right. I almost wonder sometimes if they basically just copied Kryptonite, but they just took the, like, okay, Kryptonite's green because it's the opposite of red, basically, which is what Superman's symbol is. And they basically just sort of did that with yellow and green. Not that yellow's the opposite of green, but, you know, same idea.
I get what you're saying.
But they didn't, like, give it a reason. They just said, no, this is the color's the weakness. It's just the, you know, it's not a specific thing like Kryptonite. It's just the color of yellow. I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, green representing danger thematically is a cool touch, which I like. So, really good. I think as well, I mean, Sandoval really has to do a lot with the performances of the characters here. There's a lot of moments here where, you know, they're looking glum, like when the Kents, or not Kents, sorry, the L's, I should say, are like hiding the truth from Clark, and they're kind of being gloom, whereas he's happy because he's still just out on a trip. But then by the end, we see that they're all kind of excited because they think they're all going to get a chance to leave together. And then, of course, for the story purposes, we genuinely don't know if that's going to happen in this case. Yeah. And that's usually not the case. Usually when we get a flashback to Krypton, we know how it's going to end. But here, there's so much possibility open. So, no. Yeah, absolute Superman. What are you giving it, Matt?
I'm going to give it an 8.5.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I might even be tempted to stretch to the 9, honestly. Absolute Superman issue 4, which is Jason Aaron writing, with Rafa Sandoval on the art. This is, you know, I really liked the last issue that was all set in Krypton, but I'd kind of like, when I started reading this one, I was like, oh yeah, we didn't even see like the present day Earth stuff all the last issue, so it was actually kind of nice to get back to that. And
this does the flip of that, where this is all Earth stuff.
It's all Earth, and it's all from the perspective of Lois, who's trying to track down Superman, and it very much feels like a sort of play on, you know, the birthright thing, where as a journalist she's going around like speaking to people that Clark has helped. She's kind of doing that here, but under the new context of being one of the peacemakers for the company. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it was an interesting framing of this. The other thing this issue does is set up that there's one slightly more crazy peacemaker who we later learn is actually the Peacemaker from regular DC, because they say he's named Christopher Smith. But yeah, he seemingly even goes to the Brainiac computer and says, hey, I got kind of unhinged. I think I'm worried I'm going to hurt people. I need therapy. And the computer's just like, no, your weapon malfunctioned. You're good for duty. We're going to send you back out there.
How prescient is that right now when we're dealing with AI and the state of the world and algorithms that Jason Aaron throws that in there like, nah, this isn't just going to make him more unhinged. You know, because you got to think, this was written months ago, you know?
I mean, I'm not
So.
even convinced that this is entirely a computer that they're talking to.
No, but
you
he
know?
thinks it is,
Yeah, he
right?
thinks it is. Yeah.
Right. So from the framing of that is that, you know, this is an algorithm. Because let's say even if Brainiac, there is a human in there, he's been corrupted by the data and whatnot, right? That is Brainiac. So yeah, just the fact that he's trying to be like, hey, I don't feel right. There's something wrong. And this algorithm's like, no, go back out there, kill some people. You'll feel fine. You know, again, for something that was written months ago, it's oddly prescient now.
Yeah, so you've also got Lois like disciplining some of the peacemakers for being, you know, rough with the civilians, all that stuff. A big thing as well is that she calls her father, and Sam Lane's surprise, Sam Lane's a bit of a prick because he's always a bit of a prick.
Shocker.
We see that he's lost his legs on this reality, and he's got these like sort of like metal limbs that come out of his chair that he puts on so he can walk around.
Lieutenant Dan, you got new legs.
Yeah, but he's trying to warn Lois to not be friendly with the locals, that it's dangerous for her, that the Omega Men will come. They tell a whole story about how he lost someone who also believed that being peaceful and getting to know the locals was a good idea, but he ended up getting captured by the Omega Men and killed on camera. And Lois points out that he showed her that video when she was 12. So, yeah, tough love here from Sam Lane. They tease the Omega Men a bit more as well, and obviously we go a different direction, but that it turns out that maybe some of this is propaganda, and that they're actually not this evil group that everyone's worried about.
Yeah, and so the fact that they said that they couldn't, like, you couldn't hear a lot of what they were saying over the bandsaw, right? It really painted a grim picture of the Omega Men. And yeah, so I was like, oh man, maybe this world just has various, you know, varying degrees of bad groups vying for control, right? And like the Omega Men are just as bad as Lazarus. But after a meeting with one of the Omega Men, I'm not too sure.
Well, yeah, because, you know, as Lois is walking through this market, she sends she's been followed and sort of pulls a little bit of a switcheroo and holds the guy up that was following her, notably with ginger hair. So
weird.
Yeah, immediately I was like, okay, so this is the Jimmy of this world. That's what we're doing. It's confirmed later in the issue, but as soon as he popped up and I saw that hair, I was like, okay, all right, Olsen, who are you here?
Yeah, and looks roughly to be around the same age as Lois, right? So they're not doing the younger type Jimmy that's gonna look up to Superman like a big brother, you know.
Maybe a bit younger. He seems like maybe, you know, she's maybe in her mid-30s, he's maybe like in his mid-20s kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they have a bit of a fight. He's trying to like get her to listen and say, hey, we're not what you think we are, that kind of thing. And it's actually another member of the Omega Men who shows up with a big shotgun who becomes more of a danger. Whoever this is a woman with long dark hair. I suspect it is going to be someone that's revealed later that we understand and know, just based on the fact that we're teasing some details but keeping her a secret. But she's going by Omega Prime as part of the group in the same way.
Primus.
Or Primus. Yeah, later. Yeah, she says. Because Jimmy's going by like what, Omega Alpha or something like that.
As Alpha, which that's the logo on his mask, is the Greek writing out for Alpha, and then she has the Omega, right? Which, you know, I'm wondering how much this has to do with Darkseid, because that's usually, you know, his symbol.
Oh, of course,
and stuff. So,
I mean, yeah, even from the start of the creation of this world, all these Omega symbols popping up, but obviously we're making us think of Darkseid. Honestly, it's probably one of my favorite panels of the issue is that reveal of this Omega Prime standing there with the shotgun. It's just, you know, the blast of the gun going off is very colorful, really pops with everything else. Because the outfit's very muted colors. You know, it's like a muted, like very slight green and with black, and then you've got this bright orange flash of the muzzle going off. It's really good stuff. And of course, the peacemakers who were told to stay back by Lois hear the gunshots and immediately like, let's go running. And amongst them is Christopher Smith. Feels weird to just call him Peacemaker, given that they're all technically peacemakers here, but that's, you know, what he is. Right.
But I mean, he's been singled out where none of the other ones have.
Which makes it, I think as soon as they started calling all these troops peacemakers, I think the initial question I think we all had was, okay, so one of them presumably is the peacemaker, and we'll see, you know, if he stands out or does something. And yes, seemingly Emily does. Yeah, I mean, the cliffhanger at the end of the issue is very much him. Like, we kind of don't see it. We just get the aftermath of, like, after Superman's been and gone, the cliffhanger at the end is that he has mowed down an entire, like, street of civilians. Super dark, super big deal. So, I mean, and the weird thing is he tried to ask for help thinking he was going to do something bad. So there's, like, a weird little bit of sympathy you can have for him. Where you're like, he tried to warn people that he wasn't feeling right in the head. I mean, I'm not saying you can feel that much sympathy, but you can feel a little bit at least.
No, but it makes him a tragic figure, right? Because it's turned him into a monster.
Yeah.
Just opening fire into these groups of people.
Basically freaks out in the the heat of the battle or the heat of the the crisis and does this. It's just when Lois is fighting off Prime here that the red mist starts to appear and they realize, oh wait, Superman's showing up, because at this point some of the civilians have been calling him Superman. Some of the people who have been saved by him are referring to him as that. This Superman, even they're throwing the then in there just to make it a bit more.
You kind of skipped over the opening pages where it's Lois interviewing these people from different communities.
Well, I essentially was talking to him. Yeah, I didn't really go into much detail.
Yeah, but they just go into basically he shows up like this god, and it gives them something else to believe in, because it gives you the framing that Lazarus and other entities among this earth have just ravaged these communities, and so it's these people talking with hope, and like he's a sign of better things. And they're all in different languages, right? Everything. There's the editor's notes that it's from different, like there's one guy from Lakota, from a Native American reservation, and then all these other people from across the globe.
Yeah, I think every single person is speaking a different language.
Yeah, and it just shows this unifying aspect of hope, and like he came and helped us, but he showed us that there is another way out, that we don't just have to do what they say. And he feels like he has to save this earth. And once we know about the stuff from Krypton, what we think we know about Krypton, right? Every decision that this Superman is making feels informed by that one, because he's helping these marginalized communities, get the help that they need. Because on Krypton, it feels like they were just kind of left to their own devices.
Yeah. I mean, I actually think that's inaccurate. I don't think it's even the left of their own devices. I think they were actively held down in their place.
What I mean is, like, when he found when Jor-El found the arcs that were meant for the upper classes,
Oh, sure, yes. When the time comes, they'll be abandoned, yes.
Yeah. So, and that he sees a lot of, his class in all of these people, and he wants to be that person. So I really like those couple pages.
Yeah, when Superman shows up, Omega Prime immediately starts to kind of like try and say, hey, Superman, we're on the same side, we can fight Lazarus together. And the funny thing is that because Jimmy has said, hey, Omega Men's not what you think it is, Lois, I think you should switch sides, like, I'm inclined to think that they probably are mostly good, or at least have better intentions than Lazarus. That said, though, I don't know if it's going to be a case of, they're just truly completely good and Superman should side with them. It feels like it might be a bit more shades of grey than that. Where maybe Superman will inspire them to be a little bit better if they allow him to. But he does obviously single out Lois and says, you've been looking for me, stop it. And she's like, I want to talk. He's like, I've got nothing to say to you. So yeah, of course, Superman uses his freeze breath to freeze all of the peacemakers, and Lois is left standing there, and he even has a little joke where she says, I hope this hurts you idiots for coming in here guns blazing.
And I like that as Superman flies off, it's Jimmy that gets the photo.
Yeah, just not his phone, but it's like a nice little touch of like him getting a photo of Superman. Yeah, and then he gets slapped like Robin when Robin asks about the parents at Christmas.
Is that the origin of that meme?
As far as I know, the original is something about spending Christmas with parents, and then Batman slapping Robin and saying, my parents are dead. Yeah,
because that's one of my favorite ones to meme out. And then just by itself is the Moon Knight, where he's yelling at Dracula that he owes him money. Those are my two favorite reoccurring comic gifs. So I didn't know the origin of that Batman one.
Now, admittedly, I've never actually seen the original comic, so I can't confirm for sure if that is what the original panel said. But I feel like that's the original version I've seen before it was edited with other, quotes and stuff. But yeah, she slaps Jimmy and says, "Imbecile, this is your fault." And Jimmy is adamant that Lois will still switch sides, that she can still be convinced. But yeah, there's some hope there. But yeah, the cliffhanger, as we said, is all the civilians that have been gunned down by Christopher Smith Peacemaker. So yeah, and they do a little touch here on the art where you can tell it's him at all times because his helmet's damaged. He's missing one of the eye bits, so you can always see one of his eyes, which is just smart because otherwise he would just look the exact same as the other dudes in the same outfits. So smart touch there on the art. So yeah.
I'm enjoying the restraint that Aaron and Sandoval are having here with the Superman stuff. Like, it's not too much. Because, like, in here, Superman's in, like, only a couple pages.
Yeah, I like that, but especially since after last issue, which I know we were on Krypton, so it's a very different context, but I kind of like that Superman was being kept away from us here for most of the issue. So, no, I am digging this quite a bit. I think, once again, like, the way that red is like not used too much, other than maybe a bit of the Peacekeeper's outfits, makes the red of Superman coming in really punchy. There's so much red on those pages when there's just his red mist cape is just everywhere around the panels. It's really good, and you can maybe even correlate it and say the reason why the one other thing that we're constantly seeing red in is the Peacemakers is this idea that they're both forces that are here to impact everything and maybe not fight per se, but they're both influences that are trying to sway the balance of power on the Earth. Other than that, I think the art is really solid. I think this is some of Sandoval's best work that I've seen at DC. It's just simple things. I would say every page is amazing. Like the page where Christopher Smith is talking to the computers, like, his face is a bit scratchy, maybe feels a little on the rush side, looks a little... Not as bad, let me make it clear, not as bad as this, but certainly seems a little bit more towards something like a John Romita Jr. type face, but it's only just one or two panels of an example of that. Otherwise, though, like, a lot of the mood as Lois is going around in this, like, sort of city market or whatever, all the stuff with Superman showing up is really big and bold. Like, the art has been impressing me on this. It definitely feels like Sandoval's best work that I've seen.
I would agree there. All the colors and stuff are very drab, right? So when you have these big action moments and the color but the color really takes over.
Yeah, it's more muted until you've... It was kind of what I was saying with the shotgun blast, is that everything's quite muted except that blast, which is very vividly orange and bright. Same when Superman shows up with all the red and blue.
That's what I was gonna say with the cape and whatnot. Like, it adds a whole different vibe to everything else. So it really shows the presence of these action sequences.
Yep, for sure. All right, what are you giving Absolute Superman?
I'm gonna give this a straight 8.
Yeah, I'll go 8.5. I think I'm happy with the 8.5. Absolute Superbad, issue 5. Jason Aaron writing with RAFA Sandoval on the art. So we get a little bit more of the destruction of Krypton and what happens in that. Now, it still doesn't quite answer, did anyone else make it? It very intentionally leaves it ambiguous at the end where lots of Kal-El family members might be alive. It's unknown.
Yeah, it leaves it open for a Kryptonian diaspora, which I kind of like, right? Because as this book goes, it would make sense if there were other Kryptonians that show up, right? And how their journey would be different than Cal's and what they had gone through. Because if you notice, there's a little blonde girl that hugs him.
I did notice that. You didn't think I noticed the possible Kara character?
And even if it's not Kara as we know her, a Kara-like character showing up, I think is in the cards. I really like this tweak to the origin. And
it could mirror the regular universe in that she's the only one who shows up out of all those characters. But it's also possible that all the family members went to different worlds, even because so what happens is when they leave at the end of the issue, and there's like multiple flashbacks throughout the issue of like the final days of Krypton, and basically showing that because the L's exposed to the world what's going on and the corruption and the fact that the elite and the 1%ers are already building ships to leave, it's basically caused mass riots, right? And we see the security forces out, the SWAT teams, notably all with Zod symbols on their shields.
Yep.
But, you know, we see that, and Clark sort of narrates a lot of this and talks about how he didn't really know what was worse, like what was happening to the planet or just how much everyone turned on each other in the panic and the final days and all that stuff. So that really paints a picture. But when you get to the end and they're leaving off and the ship, they sort of like, because they've kind of sold it to us that, oh, this ship can only take our family, it can't take anyone else. And we always read that as, oh, the two parents, Cal, maybe the dog, right? That's pretty much it. And there's that moment where it reveals the entire family behind them, and there's like all these uncles and aunties and cousins and the entire swath of L's.
Yeah, and Laura and Jor are both like, I wish we could take more. Because Laura's like, well, what about the old man down the street that always checks in on us? You know, and it really painted a tragic picture, right? That it's almost like Jor and Laura cared too much. You know, they had so much love in their heart for the planet and for the people. And you can kind of see where Clark is shaped from there. Because I feel like by the end of the issue, that's Clark's main thing, is that he cares a whole lot about things.
Yeah, I mean, even just Clark wanting that one last look at the planet, and he almost gets sort of dies because he spends too much time you know, being sentimental as he's supposed to be believing, and Crypto ends up saving him. But when they all leave off, because the planet's this AI that can kind of form and gives them spacesuits, after this moment of tranquility where he's hugging his little cousin, seemingly, and they get hit with one of the parts of Krypton, and the ship breaks up, you're like, oh no, tragedy. But basically what happens is the ship that's sort of bonded to all of them forms little individual ships around each person who survived the impact. So we see that the parents are on their own little ship over somewhere else, and there's other little ships. We see like a whole little, like maybe half dozen of them flying around. So maybe some of the family died in the impact. We don't really know, but some did survive, including the parents. But once there's some more chaos, there's some more explosions, and the planet blows up behind them, you know, the final moments of these flashbacks is young Clark saying, "Mom, Dad, where are you?" Like, so at the very least, he's been separated from them. And maybe from here, he does kind of go on a similar journey of coming to Earth on his own. And obviously, he'll be older. It'll be different in that sense. But maybe he does come to Earth by himself from this point forward. So, but again, it very much leaves the possibility open that his parents are still alive in another little ship and maybe went somewhere else. Yeah,
the hope is alive. Also, it seems like Soul is that ship. Right, is the piece of that ship.
Yes.
Because the way that he interacts with it when he's a kid there, you know, as it forms around him, it has that same kind of red, streaky glow to everything, which would explain that, you know, he carries his home with him now, right? Like, it's the cape, it's all the other things that we've seen him do. You know, it's that piece that ties him back to Krypton.
Yeah, the red mist is the same tech as the ship. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty clear, I think. So, yeah, and then the present day stuff is that Superman is hunting down Christopher Smith, Peacemaker, for murdering that village. And he's just tearing through, like, the base. I think it's in Pakistan, this Peacemaker base is. And he's just trying to demand where he is. He's looking for him. And Saul actually kind of, like, says, hey, something called Brainiac is trying to, like, hack into my system. And now it's, like, making us an offer. So it kind of leads to this thing where it's like, okay, Brainiac like has all these bottled worlds and it wants to talk to you. So it's like, okay, we're going to fly off and do that. But when Clark kind of like calms down, he kind of admits that he doesn't want to find Christopher Smith anymore because he's scared of what he'll do if he does get a hold of him, that he might kill him. So we get this great couple of panels of him, and it's all very in silhouette as the red mist cape is kind of flowing, and he's got the red eyes, and it's like he's trying to contain his anger. And the cliffhanger of the issue is that to calm down and try and sort of recenter himself because he realizes he's getting this you know passion to kill someone. The final page is him saying he's going home and he's walking into Smallville. Now, this is interesting because we don't really know what his Smallville life is like in this version of the story, because I mean, yeah, there was that tease of the old, Martha Kent or whoever in the hospital bed from that one issue, but we don't really know, like, what his home life was like. Did he have both Kents? How did they raise him? It must have been different because he was already like 12 or whatever he was. The whole thing. So as far as like teasing like the next part of the discovery of what's going on, this is quite nice. Also, I do wonder, just going back to the Brainiac thing for a second, is one of those bottled cities a Kryptonian city? Is that a thing here? It might be, it may not be, I don't know.
Yeah, because we don't know what Brainiac's full origin is, but the fact that Soul's like, he has bottled cities and I can hear them all screaming.
Yeah, that was a good line, actually. That was like really like horror movie, like like horror, like just terrific terror. I suppose I'll put it that way.
Yeah, it's making Brainiac feel like a threat, and it's not just like an alien threat. Like it's almost like this quest for knowledge and how it can, how it can corrupt and change you and turn you into a monster. Which I always like that version of Brainiac, right? But yeah, also curious too, which is a little thing that the motto under Smallville says "Ad Astra per Aspera." That's actually the state motto of Kansas, which I never knew, and it means "to the stars through difficulties." Which again, I don't know if that informed the Superman creators, right, when they did the Kansas stuff, to make Smallville be in Kansas, right? But it definitely fits the theme here, so I'm glad that Aaron put that in.
I mean, it's possible. I mean, if I was to guess, I would say Kansas was just the Midwest type of setting they wanted for Clark's upbringing would be my guess when that choice was made.
But it being the state motto as well, like what a coincidence. Like how does that work out that perfectly?
I mean, maybe that's because I'm not American, but how many people know the state mottos? Because you didn't.
Well, no, not of certain states, but I know Nevada's, right? We're battle board. Like it's on our flag, and this is on the Kansas flag too. So, it's a thing. And Jason Aaron is, he lives in Kansas City, but Missouri. So it's right next door, so I'm sure he saw that and went, oh, right, this is great. Especially with what the issue that we just read was, right? That was his actual origin, right? Up to the stars through, persevering through all the hardship and whatnot. But yeah, just really, really solid storytelling.
Oh yeah, this was not like an easy trip up into space, was it? Every part of this, like the saying goodbye to the planet, the danger, the almost dying, and then all of the actual like chaos in the sky as they were leaving the planet, which separated them from everyone. And obviously this is where all the art gets to shine, and you've got the red of the ships, because all the tech is red, like the red mist cape, and then you've got all the green of the explosions and the rocks flying at them. So there's a lot of nice, contrast between the red and the green constantly throughout those pages.
Yeah, and kryptonite, or whatever we're calling this green mist stuff, right? It's never looked more dangerous and toxic. Like you just get bad. Like, don't let that stuff touch you.
I mean, I guess it effectively is kryptonite in a sense, because this version is really trying to input this idea that the planet was sick, and it was like, it started having these symptoms of like this noxious stuff and whatnot. And it's hard not to think that all of this is basically, even if we never use that word, it's basically this story's version of kryptonite is all this stuff that the planet was producing in its dying days.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, we're probably going to see someone get a hold of some of it to use against Superman at some point.
Yeah, that's the thing that I've always liked in the Superman mythos is like the kryptonite came with Clark because of the explosion, right? So when his ship crash landed, it was in that kind of, meteor storm. And multiple different origins have done that. So I would not be surprised if Brainiac has some of this somewhere at this point.
Yeah, especially if he's still collecting civilizations and stuff, and is still fascinated about just all these different cultures and preserving them in some small caged way. Still really having a good time with this. The discovery of like how things went down differently has been, I think, really exciting in this book.
Yeah.
And I've been liking how it's been spread out over this first arc. So, and going to Smallville for issue 6 does seem like the right way to sort of cap all this off.
Yeah.
It's the final piece of the puzzle of like what makes his origin here so different. So yeah, I expect when we get flashbacks next issue, if we do get flashbacks, it'll be the start of his Smallville journey.
Yeah, I'm curious to see, the if Lana Lang and those type of figures from his early history
Oh, maybe.
pop in.
I wouldn't be surprised though if we don't get to them in this next issue, but they are
Hmm.
explored later down the line in more flashback, just because
Yeah,
it's maybe a lot to get to. But I mean, it very
yeah.
well might be. So, oh, very good. What are you giving
Hmm.
Absolute Superman?
I'm giving this an 8.5.
Yeah, I find it hard to argue with that. I think the art's really good. I think all the stuff with them leaving Krypton was super exciting. I think that moment where they say, "Oh, I wish we could bring more people," and you think it's only just going to be the three of them, and then you see that panel where the entire family's behind them, and it's like, "Oh shit, there's like 30 of them." This is a little bit different than what we expected. I thought that was a nice little reveal. Absolute Superman issue 6, Jason Aaron writing with Carmine Di Domenico on the art, which somehow that never clicked for me. I guess I just wasn't thinking about the art. I was just sort of reading the book, didn't even think about who the artist usually is. And then afterwards, when I was making up the list, went, "Oh, it was G Domenico," and then I went back and looked at the art and went, "Oh, I can see it now that I'm thinking about it."
Yep. So when I was reading it, I was like, "Well, this is clearly not Sandoval, but it's a bit close enough." I had no clue that it was Gia Domenico until I got to the end, and then like you just said, when you go back and look, you're like, "Oh yeah, I know that is Gia Domenico," but it doesn't have kind of the hallmark, maybe the super speed sequence, right? But it didn't have a lot of the stuff that I associate with Gia Domenico's art. You know, a lot of kind of the over the top actiony pieces. It's almost kind of more of a quiet version here.
It's reined in a little bit because I can usually tell these faces really easily. Here, I can see it when I'm looking for it, but it's very. I don't know if just maybe the inks and the colorist have really done a lot of work to try and make it feel as close to like the previous art as possible. But anyway, this book starts with Clark or Cal in the ship and emphasizes this time of like he's kind of awake and aware of the journey, right? So he's got Saul talking to him and scanning planets as they fly by. They don't have like a specific destination in mind. They're just looking for an inhabitable world, right? That's all it is.
Yep.
And Cal's losing hope, and he's like, just throw me out of the ship. Let me die. I don't want to do this anymore. I've lost hope. And just at that moment, he starts to feel really weird because he's starting to feel really hot, and it's because they're next to a yellow sun. So, of course, very quickly, Saul's like, "Hey, I found a planet. There's one right here that might be good for you."
I love the scanning success, life sustaining world detected, and then it's the ship heading into the Earth's atmosphere.
Yep. And obviously it breaks up as he's entering. So basically, like when we cut to Jonathan and Martha, and they're in the field, and they're talking about how times are rough. I mean, basically what we get through this issue is we discover that Lazarus have got drones that are controlling the weather above their farm so it never rains to try and basically force them out because they want the land. It's a super evil shit.
Yeah, very, very. It's very similar to what was going on in Krypton, right?
Oh yeah,
with you didn't pay for the rain, and again, I was getting just definitely echoes of his parents in Pa and we don't know if they're Ma and Pa quite yet, but Jonathan and Martha here, Also, Jay Domenico's Jonathan Kent kind of looks like Paul Newman here, and that cracked me up a little bit.
I mean, I don't know if that's intentional, but I mean, maybe it is.
No.
But yeah, so Superman lands and he's on fire. He's freaking out, and they kind of acknowledge that he's speaking a different language to them, so they can't understand him. But he collapses, and Martha's the sympathetic one who's like, "Hey, he needs help. He didn't mean to do anything. He's clearly scared." And we get like a montage of him lying in a bed, and he's like powers keep kicking in and scaring the crap out of them, where he'll float above the bed, or his super strength will kick in and break the bed apart, or his heat vision turns on and starts ripping around the room. And it's only after he wakes up, like sometime later, where he kind of darts out of the room. He kind of sees how pretty like the sunrise is, and he looks around at the field, and he sees he sees pretty land. He's seen farmland. And he's like, okay, this feels like home, bizarrely, right? Because that's something that Jonathan says later, is that even when he couldn't understand him, he could sort of tell that Clark was a farm boy. Like there was something there about that already. So even though they can't communicate, he spends weeks with him, just like helping, like picking up the tractor, helping around the house. And both Martha and Jonathan kind of like form a bit of a bond and kind of tell them how they think he's affected their partner. Like, Jonathan talks about how, oh, Martha was always upset about not having kids, and you've kind of given her this thing that she was missing, and she's telling, and again, Clark can't understand any of this, right? Like Superman can't understand the lick of what they're saying. So there's kind of this sweet, like, we can't really communicate anything, but we're still working in sync and forming a bond anyway, which kind of makes it sweet in a different way than normal.
Because they have more in common than they don't, right? Like there's this, he can tell that he's a farmer's kid, and that, Cal is very familiar with the type of stuff that they do on the farm. And that whole part with, she always wanted to be a mother, and you being around is letting her do that, And then when she says, him being around has given Jonathan something else to worry about, to help him remember who he is. And it's not just worrying about that the farm's not going to survive.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like he showed up almost like an angel falling from the skies. Because even when he lands and that the cape's up behind him, it kind of resembles wings, right? And we get this real fun moment where Jonathan's like, I asked for it to rain, not no boy, on fire from the sky. So it's this thing that they look like a negative, but has turned into a positive.
Yeah, and eventually Saul comes back online. Basically, Saul had to shut down for like all these weeks, and eventually comes back online after recharging. And Cal's like, "Okay, can you please download the language that these people speak so that I can learn it? Thank you." So yeah, they're quite shocked when he just walks up and says, "Hello, my name is Kal-El." And they're like, "Oh, well, this is Jonathan." I feel like they would still say they're Jonathan and Martha, even when they couldn't like understand each other. I think at the very least you would point to yourself and go, Peter, who are you? But anyway,
Matt.
Yes, good job, Matt. You got it right. So yeah, very quickly, like Saul recognizes that there's drones in the sky, like affecting the weather, and like brings them all down. And immediately it starts raining, and it's not enough to save the season on the farm, but it's like, hey, this is like a sign of like hope to come. Like he's already fixed something. Yeah. But there's like there's a spy from Lazarus watching in a truck saying, hey, we need immigration over here. There's like someone suspicious here that can do things. So the Peacemakers show up and basically try and take Cal from them, and they're yelling, leave him alone, and Superman gets angry, and obviously he ends up being stronger than they're expecting, and basically Jonathan like looks at Clark and says, hey son, please go, like get away, don't worry about us. And he flies off kind of in anger, frustrated, and Lazarus are freaking out saying, oh wait, this kid just took to the skies, he's flying. So that's actually the end of the flashback stuff for the issue. And when we start on the present day stuff, Lois is went to the old folks home where Martha's apparently staying, just sort of teasing that she's maybe going to go speak to her next issue. But we get a sequence at the end here where Brainiac's talking and discussing plans with whoever's working for Brainiac, or at least is in cahoots with Brainiac. And they even say Lazarus Pit, deactivating, and I'm like, okay, it makes sense. Lazarus Corporation, Lazarus Pits, that's not a much of a stretch. But I was like, who's using it, right? Because as much as it's an obvious person that could be using it, I was thinking, well, it's probably someone else because this is a Superman comic. Nope, it's Ra's al Ghul. Ra's al Ghul is running the Lazarus Corporation, which we could have predicted, obviously, but it's this is it now. So the Absolute Universe is turning Ra's al Ghul into a Superman villain.
Which, if you look at what this version of Superman is, right? He is that hero of the oppressed, right? We've seen him saving the miners. We've seen that what the S symbol stands for, right? It's the working class. And when you look at Ra's al Ghul and what he represents, is yes, ultimately he wants to save the world, but he wants to do it for himself, right? So he's kind of like this upper, the super upper class that wants to save it, but only so they can exploit it. So you put those two at odds with each other, and it makes for some great storytelling because they're on the different ends of the spectrum. But early on, when Jonathan and Martha are talking, we get little hints of it here. And as I'm reading, Jonathan's like, Lazarus, I've been listening to the, or reading on the internet, and there's people on the line that said like they have these pits that can heal anything. And I'm like, we're not doing Ra's al Ghul. And then we get to the end, and he gets out of the Lazarus pit, and full bearded glory wearing a loincloth. And I'm just like, oh, we are doing Ra's al Ghul. Awesome.
Yeah,
let's see where this goes.
It opens a lot of interesting questions because, one, like, where, how, and when does Lex ever become like a thing in this, if at all? And is Lex even a Superman villain in this universe? Lex could be a Batman villain in this universe for all we goddamn know. Given this,
he could be an ally, right? Because if we take the idea that Lex could have saved the world, but they got jealous of Superman. If Superman doesn't appear as we think he does, right? Maybe Lex has more time to reflect or whatever, or maybe he's a Lazarus scientist that defects because he doesn't like the way that it's going, kind of like Lois.
Maybe he takes control of the company after Superman takes out Raz. I mean, that's maybe the most obvious, boring thing for them to do, but it's possible.
Right.
But it also opens up the door of like, okay, well, who else could like swap villain or swap heroes? Like, what if I don't know, Sinestro is now a Teen Titans villain. I don't know.
Or I mean, you got Sinestro and Martian Manhunter, right? They're both these alien figures that But yeah, it definitely opens the door and it switches stuff up in the world. But I do like the pairing of Superman, especially this version of Superman, and Ra's al Ghul, because this clearly doesn't feel like the same Ra's al Ghul that we're used to. Because everything, like when I think of a Lazarus pit, it's in a cave, it's deep and dank. It's all ritualistic. Here, it seems like it's much more tech-based.
Yes.
He gets out of the Lazarus pit. And
he does have robots that are wearing robes like they're in a cult. So there is at least a little bit of that ritualistic side of it still remaining.
But it's more like that techno. Like, I just listened to this series about a techno AI cult that, really went off the rails. And this is kind of what they used to wear black robes and call themselves actual Siths, right? Like some weird stuff out there. This is what it reminded me. Like I finished that podcast, I read this book, and I was like, oh, it's right here, But yeah, no, these robots that almost kind of also resemble the Superman robots that I'm used to seeing. The kind of faceless, almost like Helix. But they're wearing robes here and. Yeah, it definitely switches up Ra's as far as we know. So, but yeah, I'm super, super hyped. This took the Absolute Superman, which I was already enjoying, and it really tugged on my heartstrings with Ma and Pa Kent and their conversation at the beginning. And then when they are both talking to Clark, even though he can't understand, and it's like, you being here kind of saved the other. And yeah, it really pulled on me here. So it took me from really enjoying Absolute Superman to absolutely loving after this first arc.
Yeah, I mean, this is technically the end of the first arc in some ways. I mean, again, much like Absolute Batman does not feel like really the end of any kind of story, but just like, hey, big cliffhanger to end this arc on before we go into the rest of it. So meaning that when they sell the trade, assuming tariffs don't make that impossible, there'll be a nice cliffhanger at the end of it for people to chew on. So, all right, what are you giving Absolute Superman?
I'm gonna give this one a 9.
Damn. I don't know if I'll go quite that. I did like it, and I do think the Ra's al Ghul reveal at the end is interesting. But I think I'm happy to go for an 8 out of 10 on this, for sure.